Tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime. When a young wife and mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she and her husband made the choice to openly share their journey. A lot of people have wanted to talk to you about this.
I wanted to come on here and continue to preach what she taught me about life. That was the biggest burden I've ever carried, of knowing her fate. She says, I can't give you kids, but I can give you a son.
What were the final words Haley told your son Weston before she passed? Tonight, a difficult topic to tackle, but one that will grip nearly all of us at one time or another. I'm talking about grief. The emotions that come with grief can feel overwhelming and unpredictable. It's not a linear process, nor is there a right way to grieve. So when a young wife and mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she and her husband made the choice to openly share their journey. The videos they made have received more than 700 million views on social media. Here's the touching story of Haley and Taylor.
When I first saw Haley, it took my breath away. We dated all through high school, college, and 10 years ago, I proposed to her.
It's a beautiful day. Taylor and Haley, take New York.
A year after we got engaged, she was having some health issues and gaining weight, and so she went to the doctor, and doctor comes in, she's got tears in her eyes and says, you have advanced ovarian cancer. And I'd never felt a fear like that in my life.
What surgery number is this for us?
12.
I'm tired of hospitals.
Me too.
April of 2016, we had a major surgery that lasted almost 9 hours. They removed both ovaries, her uterus, a foot of her colon, 4 lymph nodes, her appendix, her spleen, her gallbladder. But not only that, they were able to remove 100% of visible cancer, which was honestly a miracle.
We just got back from seeing Dr. Chi, and we're all clear to go start our lives.
And so that was the time we decided to move forward with surrogacy. And so she could be a mother and I could be a dad.
I've always wanted a baby.
January of 2019, our son Weston was born. That was the greatest day. Within a year of Weston being born, after dealing with cancer for 7 years, then the cancer started coming back.
I hate this.
I remember when the doctor told us, Haley just said, I guess this is it then.
So when you can't see mommy, where am I?
In your heart.
In your heart.
By July, she'd been in hospice for 7 months, and she had fought to the end. So I brought Weston in. He got up and gave her a kiss on the cheek. She kind of woke up and looked at him and said, I love you, Weston. She passed away 2 days later.
Well, Taylor, thanks for being here.
Of course, I'm appreciative to be here and continue the story and keep the conversation going about, the hardships of losing a loved one. And it's something we all go through. Everybody in this life is going to lose somebody at some point.
Yeah. I know a lot of people have wanted to talk to you about this. Why did you decide to do it here, and why now?
I try to live by what Haley, asked me to promise her, and that was to live my life to the fullest and to continue her message going forward and to keep her memory alive. Her greatest fear was being forgotten. And I said, I'm never going to let you be forgotten. And nothing fires me up more than talking about her. She's the greatest person I've ever known. And I wanted to come on here and continue to preach what she believed and what she taught me about life. And I never dreamed I would be here talking to you about her. I mean, I'm just blown away. So very grateful.
She would approve?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
She would be very proud.
Did you ever imagine when you started kind of doing a video diary of this and unfolding it, that it would get such attention and be such an inspiration to people?
From the very beginning, I just had this weird belief that our story would actually get out there because it just is a powerful story. I did some original videos years ago, right after she got sick, just trying to like keep our family informed. But really, when I posted in November of 2022, after we found out we were at the end of the road, and that's when it just went crazy. I mean, just exploded.
Take me through the moment when you first heard that she had this diagnosis and that it was very, very serious.
We were 2 months from getting married. I had just recently graduated from A&M in petroleum engineering, and we had the world ahead of us. Very excited for our future, and she had been having some issues and some bloating issues and weight gain and energy, and so she finally went to the doctor and got like an ultrasound to kind of see what was going on there, and then they quickly realized they needed to do a CT scan. So we did that a few days later, and I was at work. She called me, said, I've got a grapefruit-sized mass in my abdomen, and I've got an appointment with an oncologist at noon. Can you come home? And I mean, she's sobbing. I can barely understand her. And I said, of course, I'll be there. I jumped in the car, and I remember driving home just praying out loud, like, Lord, let me have kids. Like, please don't take that from me and Haley. Like, I want kids, and got home. She was still freaking out, and I was trying to stay calm. And so we went to the appointment, and I was so naive at that age. I think I was 23, 24, that we walked into the waiting room, and I saw people that were bald with no hair. And then I realized an oncologist was a cancer doctor. And then I'm like, this isn't happening. And I just started panicking and freaking out and internally trying to keep it together. And they called her back and went back there, and the doctor comes in and opens the paperwork and looks up, and she's got tears. And she said, I've been doing this a long time, and by the looks of your scans that I'm looking here, you have ovarian cancer, and if you do, it's advanced. And we were just shocked. The room goes quiet, just like they show in the movies. And so the first thing Haley says is, please tell me I can have children. And she said, unfortunately, you're going to have to worry about that later because you're fighting for your life. And then everything just seemed to spiral out of control. I experienced a debilitating fear that I can't put into words. We were about 2 months from getting married, and, looking forward to moving forward with that. And, this actually is just heartbreaking for me to think about. But that night, she sat me down and said, if you would like to move on, I don't blame you. Like, I'm going to give you nothing but a broken life, and you deserve the world, and you've worked hard, and you deserve a good life. And it just broke me for her to be that low, but that mature, to be like, I release you, like, because we weren't married yet. And I said, are you crazy? Like, we're riding this together. Like, I hope you would stand by me. And she was like, of course I would. And I was like, well, then let's figure out what we're going to do. Let's get this solved.
And you did get married?
Yep, we did get married. 2 months later, she did 9 weeks of chemo, lost her hair. Fortunately, we were able to do first look photos within a few days of the diagnosis. She wanted to take pictures in her wedding dress with her hair, in her natural body before she was loaded up with steroids from the chemo. So then got married in February of 2016, and it was a great day, but it was a day with a cloud over it. It was just hard to concentrate.
And what happened 3 days after the wedding?
I wanted to talk to the doctor alone, and I was sitting there, and I looked up at her, and I said, she's dying, isn't she? She said, she's got probably 6 months. I went on that honeymoon knowing that was probably our last trip.
What happened 3 days after the wedding?
3 days later, she got her scan to see how the chemo, if it did what we needed it to do, so we could do a surgery. And the doctor comes in and says, It did not work. We've got tumor growth all over, nothing shrunk. And she just had this tone and this sense that she wanted to say more, but wasn't. And I just had this need to find out what was going on. So I asked everybody to step out, and I wanted to talk to the doctor alone. And I was sitting there, and I looked up at her, and I said, "She's dying, isn't she?" She said, "She's got probably 6 months." And so I just married her 3 days ago, and now I find out she's not going to make it. And I broke down, and she comforted me, and I told her, I said, "I can't tell Haley that. Like, you're going to have to tell her that." And she said, "The only reason I didn't tell her is because you are about to go on your honeymoon. I want her to enjoy that and not worry about this. And I also want another week to kind of see if I can come up with another plan." And I said, "All right." So I went on that honeymoon knowing that was probably our last trip, and that was the biggest burden I've ever carried, of knowing her fate, but luckily it turned out that there was another plan that God had in store, and her doctor said, "I know of a surgeon in New York, and he is the best ovarian cancer debulking surgeon in the world. If anyone could help you, it's him." And ended up removing 100% of visible cancer, which I thought was a miracle. Now, he made it very clear that, she wasn't cancer-free. She still had microscopic cancer cells, but any visible tumors he removed.
And you had quality time.
Yes, she went from having massive tumors all over to nothing. And so that definitely gave us years. She was diagnosed in 15 and passed away in 23. So a lot more than 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 8 years.
Yeah.
And you did have a child.
Yes. This was around 2018. We found a drug that seemed to maintain the tumor growth at what it was and seemed to keep it at a steady level. And the doctor truly felt that we had a really good longevity estimate for her. Because if we were going to bring a child into this world, we wanted to have a lot of time. And Haley deserved to be a mom. She was put on this planet to be a mom. I can tell you that 100%. So we decided to move forward. And what's really cool about this story that I think is amazing is we have a family friend that Haley nannied for. And on our wedding night, she came up to Haley and said, "If you ever are in a place to have children, I will be your surrogate." And she reminded us every year, "I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it." So we took her up on the offer, and Haley always wanted a girl, and I always wanted a boy. And we agreed that the healthiest embryo is the one we would transfer. And so we go into the appointment, and doctor says, "All right, healthiest embryo you want, it's a girl." And I go, "What about the second one?" He goes, "It's a girl." I was like, "Man, strike two, And I said, "Number 3. And he said, "Boy." And so I was just ready to move forward with the girl, and Haley looks up and she goes, "Let's transfer the boy." And I go, "What?" She says, "I can't give you kids, but I can give you a son." I started to document Haley's journey off and on through the years.
I like you.
Now I can give you the.
You're my girl.
Haley really got into the videos.
Should we show the video of what you did?
Then Weston, when he was born, he was in a lot of the videos. And that's when we started receiving hundreds of messages and these people that were having struggles in their own life.
Please know how much you are changing my life and everyone around you.
She was absolutely inspiring to so many people. Haley wrote a letter for me for Mother's Day to open up. She wanted to make sure I had some kind of comforting message to read on a day that she knew that I was going to be struggling. She wrote, "Don't ever forget how strong you are. Watch a video of me and hug our baby boy tonight. I hope you can feel our love and feel me. I love you endlessly."
Taylor and Haley's story garnered hundreds of millions of views online. And Taylor says it's their son, Weston, and wanting to be the best father possible that makes every day worth living.
Since Haley passed away, I miss her terribly. But I would say Weston being in my life has been a saving grace for me. Weston has become my best friend. We love to go hunting and fishing. He's a great little baseball player, and that's what I grew up playing, and I love working with him with that. And occasionally he'll come up to me and he'll be really sad. He misses his mother, and we pray every day. We pray before we eat our meals. I'll just tell him that Jesus came to take Mom home. I'm so blessed to have him and that he's so much like Haley because I feel like she's still here. Obviously, when you lose a loved one and you're going through grief, it's extremely easy to get stuck in those negative thoughts. I've been blessed to have health to continue to live, to be able to get up every day. I've got to take advantage of those blessings. I'm not doing Haley justice if I don't go out there and live.
Taylor, what were the final words that Haley told your son Weston before she passed?
You know, I'd been telling Weston for all he's ever known since birth is that Mommy was sick and was a little different than most mommies and couldn't do everything. And so, you know, I never sugarcoated anything with that boy, and I still don't. So when that day came where she was really starting to slip into that coma state, that sleep state, and I wanted her to at least be able to talk to Weston. And he was at summer camp and at the church. And so we went and got him, brought him in, and I sat him down, and it was just me, Haley, and Weston. And I said, "You're an amazing son. You're the best little boy. The reason Mom is still here is because of you. And you are the saving grace for both of us. And there's nothing you did wrong." You know, because sometimes kids will think it's their fault. And he grabbed her hand, and that caused her to kind of wake up a little bit. And she said, "I love you, Weston." And she laid her head back down, and that was the last thing she ever said. And she passed away 2 days later.
What do you do to keep her memory alive with him?
I talk about her every day. There's not one thing in my house that's changed. Every night before bed, we say our prayers, and I always open the floor to him if he wants to talk to Mommy. Some nights he does, some nights he doesn't want to. And there's nothing quite as heartbreaking than listening to your son talk to his deceased mother at night. I mean, it is heartbreaking to listen to because his mind doesn't fully understand. And he's asking, "Can you come back? You know, I want to see you again." And it's just, but he's so mature and loving, and I just am so blessed that I get to call him my son.
You know, he's at an age where those memories are fragile.
Yeah.
And you've got to keep that alive for him.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's so painful that people say, I don't want to talk about that. And that's very selfish because he needs that to bridge across that decay so he doesn't feel so guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll help him tremendously if you'll give him that gift.
Oh, I don't waste an opportunity to talk about it, that's for sure.
What have you done with the anger at this being taken away from you and from him? What have you done with the anger at this being taken away from you and from him?
I used to be very angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at my situation. I had a victim mentality, a poor me attitude. This was in the middle of the caregiving where I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Not that I mean, I was honored to take care of her, but, you know, there's probably multiple caregivers in here, but it can wear on you. It's hard. You know, dealing with that day in and day out, I was very angry. But I honestly can sit here and tell you today, I have zero anger. I'm sitting here with nothing but gratitude in my heart for what the time I did get and for what she did teach me. And I know because of my faith that I'll see her again. And I hold on to that. And I believe very strongly that the Lord doesn't do things to people. He allows things to happen. And I look at what has come from this story, what he's used her to do. And I'm just, like I said, sitting here with nothing but a heart full of gratitude, grateful and thankful for what she has taught me in my young life. And just so, I mean, I said it earlier. I was 23 years old, sitting in my truck. She just told me that I could leave. I'm crying. I think my life is over. I don't see a future for me, but I know what I need to do. And I thought it was over. And now I'm sitting here talking to you, telling her story. How can you not believe that there's a God, that there's a greater plan for all of us? And I'm so grateful for the time that we had in hospice, because I learned a lot about the hospice journey that I didn't quite understand till I went through it.
Well, hospice is a true gift, and skilled hospice nurses and all are truly angels on earth. My next guest, Julie, better known on social media as Hospice Nurse Julie, is the author of Nothing to Fear, Demystifying Death to Live More Fully. Now, she says talking about the details and the dying process is exactly what we need to do.
As a hospice nurse, I'm trying to help people die in peace. Everyone that comes on hospice has either declined further treatment or they've exhausted all treatment. There's a doctor, there's a nurse, a social worker, a chaplain. It's spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, all the things. Try to treat the whole person to help make this as easy and as peaceful as possible. The gift of hospice is time. This is the person's end-of-life journey. That's why hospice is so beautiful. We have to bring people together to have those moments before that person dies. Because so many times people die in an instant and they're not given that luxury. So people always think hospice nursing is depressing. Watching someone take their last breath on hospice with friends and family around, it's like witnessing a birth. All I see is love.
Well, Julie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You were an ICU nurse.
Yes.
Why did you choose to switch over to hospice? Because that's a big switch.
Big switch. I was an ICU nurse for 8 years. And during that time, slowly but surely, as I gained confidence in what I was doing as a nurse, I started getting a voice and becoming an advocate for people that I felt like we were doing a disservice to by keeping them alive in the ICU. Now, not everyone, of course, ICU is amazing, but certain circumstances, it's like prolonging life at all cost was doing a disservice, which eventually led me to hospice.
Yeah, and your book is amazing, by the way. And you talk about having a good death. What do you mean by that?
So a good death, peaceful death, however you want to talk about it, I think is one where the family understands what death and dying looks like. People will linger usually for a few days, unconscious, not eating and drinking. They might breathe a little different. And families look at that and they think, emergency, something's wrong. We need to do something, fix this. And in reality, it's normal. It's how someone dies, right? So preparing yourself in that way, knowing what death really looks like, can help you have a peaceful environment, at least, around that death.
How does hospice help people have a good death?
Oh man, yeah, I could talk about this forever. So we have a full team of people that helps you with all areas. So the symptom management of the person who's dying. We have a social worker to help with family dynamics and just talk about the situation at hand. Chaplain, doctor, a CNA to help with hygiene and support the family. 24-hour number, so a nurse can come to your house anytime, day or night, no matter what's going on. It's bringing healthcare to your home so you can live out the rest of your life. That's my main thing. People think hospice is about dying. People are dying on hospice, but the whole point is so they can live out the rest of their life.
More. Yeah, exactly.
I love you and Haley. That video makes me cry again. It's just so beautiful, that video.
That was well said, Nurse Julie. Still to come, Haley and Taylor's son, Weston, will come out to say hi. But first, I want you to meet someone I encountered several years ago when we were searching for her missing daughter. The grief this mother has experienced really packed a 1-2 punch. You'll understand what I mean when we come back. We first met Lori when she shared her story about her daughter Ebby's disappearance and murder. Now, Lori experienced every parent's worst nightmare, but it didn't end there. She also lost her son suddenly. Despite her profound loss, she says it is possible to find happiness, and in fact, it's okay. Take a look.
From my first appearance on the Dr. Phil show, I've lost my 18-year-old daughter, Ebby, to murder. I lost my 35-year-old son, my father, my mom, and my best friend. It's a lot. It is a lot of death. All those have left a mark on me. With all these different deaths, I dealt with them differently. With Ebby's death, I had to find her, so I had to keep moving. Trevor's death, I did go to bed. He was 35. He died of a massive heart attack. But those sad days still come. The birthdays, the death anniversaries, it's like my body holds on to that stress some. With my faith, I have always been able to find something good out of bad. There's no time limit for joy or sadness, but you have to keep going forward.
Lori, I'm so happy to see you again.
I'm glad to see you too.
And I'm glad to see you're doing so well, despite the fact that you've had another terrible loss with your son.
He was 35 from a massive heart attack.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, we talk about this, and you know, you've been on 3 times before because we were working on all of this.
Finding Ebby.
And you had some really rough times with this. And talk about that a little bit.
You know, I had different deaths. With Ebby's, it was trauma, looking for her for 2 years. Then they found her dead in a drain. And then, so I had death with her. And then a year later, my son died of a massive heart attack. That was a shocking death. With Trevor, after his death, God granted me peace with that. I got to hear Trevor's voice, voice. That's just something that I believe as your hospice nurse said, you know, God does for you what you can't do for yourself. And he did that for me after Trevor's death because I didn't get to say goodbye.
Right.
So I had an experience with that. And I went to bed, just went to bed. And I watched Frasier. I watched every season, every episode. And then I got up and it made me laugh. My family, we laugh. My son was one of the funniest human beings you would ever know. And now when I get sad with Trevor, I can look through his Instagram or his Facebook and see the dumbest things, but they're so funny. And so he left me with laughter.
Yeah. I've talked to so many people who will lose a loved one and they'll catch themselves laughing or something, and they'll just feel a dagger of guilt in their heart and say,
Yes.
oh my God, I have a dead child and I'm standing here laughing. What kind of mother am I? And there is an answer to that question. You're a human mother. And this is a distraction that it's like releasing a pressure valve.
Yes.
Letting some pressure off. It's not a betrayal.
And men process things differently.
Oh, totally.
My husband, you know, totally different with his grief.
How do people respond to you if they haven't seen you sense of loss and then they see you? What do they bring it up? Do they not bring it up?
Since my losses, I hope they bring it up. I want to talk about my losses. I want you to ask me about my kids. Tell me a story about Trevor, Laurie. Tell me a story about Abby. I think that's the greatest gift you can do for someone that's lost a loved one.
Well, that is so important for people to hear you say, because oftentimes people say, wow, you know, I see somebody at the mall or the grocery store or at church or the sidewalk, and they seem to be doing really well. I don't want to bring them down.
Right.
I don't want to take them back to that moment. Yes, you do.
Yes.
Yes, you do. It's okay to say, hey, I haven't seen you since your loss. I just need to tell you how sorry I am that you had that loss. And,
Right.
and I remember the last time I saw your son or your daughter, and we had a wonderful conversation, and they
Even
were
if you
so
don't
great.
know them.
Yeah, say something about them.
I've had Trevor's coworkers, I never met them, come up to me and say, your son made me laugh every day.
Yeah. And it's great to know what your children are like when you're not around.
Right.
So you love to hear it. And you're right, men do grieve differently. Next, Lori's friend Doug is going to join us to share what he went through after unexpectedly losing his 32-year-old son and the struggle many fathers feel when trying to express their pain. My next guest works with the elderly. In fact, he cared for Lori's parents before they passed. He says that while he is able to compartmentalize the passing of his patients, when his 35-year-old son died, his world just fell apart.
I didn't always want to be a father, but it happened and I welcomed it with open arms. The greatest day of my life. Around 14 or 15 years old is when I noticed Logan influenced by drugs. I didn't notice it like I should have. I just thought he was being a rebellious child. That's not how it turned out to be. I felt powerless because I didn't have the ability to wave my magic dad wand and make it all better. He tried his hardest to stay clean and sober, but it just wasn't in him. Around 4 years ago, my dad called me, said, I need to talk about Logan. In my heart, I knew right that moment that he was dead. I just fell on the ground. And that was 4 years ago today. The message came from my father. I can't permit it. Logan was very loving, very caring, very big-hearted, kind, generous, respectful. He was a fabulous kid.
Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I know it's still not easy, and I appreciate you coming here and sharing about it.
I appreciate having the opportunity to tell Logan's story.
I think it's a very interesting point you make about the importance of taking the role of father and the pain that fathers go through, because we don't express things as much, and sometimes people expect us maybe to be more stoic about this. And I always say big boys don't cry, but men do. And when it's something as much gravity as your child, you have to give it a voice and you have to express your feelings.
I agree 100%. I don't know why men choose to grieve or if it's just a cultural thing, but they grieve differently. In the support groups that I belong to, that I couldn't be here today without, it's all geared towards women. So I'm doing something with Hope Movement Coalition to help start a support group for specifically men.
And what do you think is the most important message that men need to hear, that men need to have permission?
They need permission to cry, permission to grieve, permission to talk about their children that are gone. I have his name tattooed right on my arm.
Yeah.
And when people see that tattoo, they're like, what is that? And my son died of fentanyl poisoning. I want the world to know about it. I want the world to know what a horrible situation the drugs are that took my son.
I was glad to hear you say fentanyl poisoning, not fentanyl overdose, because it's actually a poisoning. And I think the way this is pouring into the country now, these fentanyl deaths are just tantamount to murder.
The good news is that in our state of Arkansas, we now have laws where they can prosecute and punish the dealer that handed the pill to them.
Yeah.
In my mind, they're murderers. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you're working on this with creating a place for men to go and a place for men to get this, because men do grieve differently. I mean, there's no question about it. And one of the things we try to do is educate about this. They're more likely than women to remain silent and grieve in isolation. They don't connect and network, and they're potentially more susceptible to developing some kind of a crutch, reliance on alcohol or risk-taking behaviors. And they use strategies of avoidance and minimization of grief instead of dealing with it, straight up. And it has a huge impact on men. It puts men at risk of an early death because it can create hypertension. It can create all kinds of problems that actually take years off of your life.
It contributed to Trevor's death. I'm positive of it.
Yeah.
He was the last one to talk to his sister. And that with our heart disease, I know that the stress of that, I mean, I can't imagine carrying the stress.
No, you can't. And so we need to talk about it and educate people about it. So God bless you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
For the men. I just can't even begin to tell you. I thank both of you for being here and talking about this.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I appreciate it. We're going to take a break. Before we go, there's just one more guest left to meet, and he might be the most special of them all. That's next. Well, before we say goodnight, Taylor and Haley's son, Weston, may not realize the impact his mother had on the world just yet, but in time, he'll learn that his mother touched millions of lives. Please welcome Weston.
Oh my God, I can't. Taylor, oh my God.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Daddy.
What do you say, buddy?
Say hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
You look pretty sharp.
Thank you.
Yeah, you dress just like your dad.
Yes.
Yeah, you dress like this every day?
Not every day.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. So I watched you a few minutes ago throwing a baseball. You got a pretty good arm on you. You like to play baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what grade are you in?
Kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten? Yeah. So what do you like to do?
I like to stay home with my daddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We like to play golf together,
Mm-hmm.
and baseball,
Uh-huh.
bike rides, all that good stuff.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about being on television?
Cool.
Yeah. Well, we just thought it would be great to meet you. Your dad's really proud of you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you proud of your dad?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I'm awfully glad to meet you. So thanks for coming out and saying hi to us.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we go, I would like to take a moment to celebrate Haley's life, and you're okay with Weston sharing this as well. So let's take a look.
So when you can't see Mommy, where am I?
In your heart.
In your heart.
Happy birthday! Oh my goodness. Here, Mama.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, baby. I love you. Give me a hug. Love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for being here, and good night.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.